Welcome back to the House of Rick podcast. This is not a full podcast. I'm trying something here. It had been mentioned that maybe something kind of a condensed version of the podcast might be successful, might be something everyone wanted to hear, might make consumption of the episodes easier. So I'm trying it out. What the hell? Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. Let me know what you think. This will be video only, just so you guys are aware. So I also have a little something new here in a second that you guys will see. New intro for the podcast. Obviously, I had to come up with something that worked video and audio both. So I had to go back and recut the intro, and I thought that some updates were necessary as there goes a lawnmower in the background behind me. But this is the condensed version of the podcast. Let me know what you guys think. There's a lot of changes I can make to it, and I'm still trying to figure out what it would look like if I continue to do this. But if you'd like it, I'd prefer to know, because it does take some work for me to go through and cut up these clips and everything. So let me know what you think.
Lofton with his team down by 2 to the corner. Caputo! No good! And it's over! St. Louis is going dancing. An unlikely run. Tying his career high. Ventura was it out. And here they come. The student section stores the Cardinals at St. Louis. Possession game. Mitchell. Cassidy. Ellis.
Got to get a shot off. It's got to be a 3.
Ellis. Mitchell for the tie. Got it! Oh!
Runner off the glass, no. Tip battle loose. Evans is absolutely decked by Gant. Evans stays in the game.
Speaking of leveling,
Conklin leveled Wilcox, and he's down for the count. Driving Evans for Conklin layup. Good whistle foul. Count the basket. You want to play rough? You want to play rough? Let's play.
Assume they're not going to foul you. Just take it right to the rim. Goodwin, 2 for the tie, 3 for the win. Goodwin takes it in, and he got it. We're tied. Overtime. Here we come.
Welcome to the House that Rick Built podcast with your hosts, Colin Kessler and Zach Miller. This show is sponsored by Mortgage Partners Group, where mortgage solutions are made simple.
Timeout on the floor. 68-46 St. Louis. This is Billiken basketball.
On this episode of the House that Rick Built, we started off our first video podcast ever. For those of you not watching not watching on YouTube, you just put on a Kevin Lish jersey. I believe he did that backwards. We also talked about Kevin Lish. Is Kevin Lish one of the best Billikens to ever play overseas? Maybe the best Billiken to play overseas? And he's probably, I think, if you look at the guys that SLU has sent overseas, I think he has to be maybe the most successful we've seen thus far. Obviously, we've got guys over there that are still playing, but then we had Ford Stuen join the podcast, assistant coach for St. Louis University men's basketball team. He joined, talk about the fact that he listens to the podcast, which is unbelievable.
We have assistant men's basketball coach at St. Louis University, Ford Stuen. He's joining the podcast. Welcome, Coach Stuen.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I've had some time on my hands, and like I said, glad to be on and hopefully shed some light on the program and answer some questions as much as possible.
Obviously, Ford was involved in the team last year as they dealt with the issues of the quarantining and pandemic that went around and knocked the Billikens out of the A10 tournament in Brooklyn, as it did to every team in the A10. So Ford obviously had a little bit of insight into that situation. So here he is talking about their reaction and response to COVID-19.
When we got back, we were sitting over, we got to the airport at Teterboro, and we were in the FBO, And I remember Janet coming over, and myself and Coach Ford, Coach Tate, and Coach Baylor were kind of in the little coffee section area in the FBO. And I remember Janet coming over and kind of talking about, hey, we're going to have to, get these guys back, make sure they have their books, different things like that. And I'm not going to lie, we as coaches are like, oh boy, like, what is this going to look like from an academic standpoint? I'm like, it's hard enough to get a group of 15 guys, and they're great guys, but academics are tough enough when you got them around you, much less when they get to their home environments, and they've all got different home environments than they've got here, and different moving pieces, and trying to get them on Zooms and anything. And at that moment, we were like, I don't know how this is going to go, but we were also optimistic from the standpoint of at that time, professors, everybody was going through it, so people were going to be a little more lenient, and hopefully, and so we started to switch our mind frame from that to, I know we have different academic teams, and I told all the guys on my team, I'm like, try to switch your mind frame from this being a burden, and I know it is when you're home and you're doing, but at the same time, you don't have a lot going on now, to let me get ahead here. Let me boost my GPA. Because people are going to help you. They're going to give you a little more time, and then we ultimately ended up going pass fail and different things with the university, which nobody actually used. But nonetheless, at that time, we didn't know how it was going to go. And looking back, I can't say enough about our guys. I remember about a week after we get on our first Zoom, and I was kind of like, I don't know how this is going to go. There's no way all these guys are going to be on here, this, and this. At that point, they all got on, and it was refreshing. It was just so funny. I remember that first Zoom, and everybody's cracking up, laughing. Again, we're so many unknowns. We don't know if we're about to be out of college basketball for 6 months or a year, or, we may be back in a month at that point. And so all the unknowns, but just getting everybody back safe and making sure that everybody was, like I said, safe. But from that point on, staying on top of academics was a crucial thing for us, obviously. And these guys did an unbelievable job.
Two people that will be really high on, the list for people to hear about and to hear how they're doing are obviously going to be Fred Thatch and Gibson Jimerson, two very talented players we saw go down with injuries last year, and that we're hoping to see healthy this year and play a full season. So we obviously had asked Ford Stuen how those two guys are doing, and he gave us not only a breakdown of their injuries as best as he could, but also a little bit of insight into how they're looking for next season.
Going back as a staff, crazy deal of, I think it might have started Seton Hall, but there was a few plays in a game, and we spent 5 hours after Seton Hall in the office. And I remember telling Coach Tate and Coach Giacoletti, something's not right with him. So you can watch him, and that play right there is not Fred Thatch. That play not, and it was the craziest thing. Fast forward a couple more days. I don't know if he played another game. I can't remember. It's all foggy. But fast forward, and he comes to us and's like, I don't feel like myself. Kind of getting emotional about it. He just didn't feel like himself, and his legs were gone and whatnot. And some things that happened in practice during a conditioning deal with his back and just different things. And so it was a rough year for him, and to not be, for such a competitor he is, to lose out on a year like that. But Fred's Fred. Fred is such a focal point of this program and this team from a standpoint of, he's about all the right things. He does everything the right way in the classroom, carries himself the right way. Fred Thatch is going to make some of himself, whether it's on the court or off the court. I've always said that, but it's been a tough go. Hopefully he gets that year back, but I think all signs are pointing in the right direction. We'll ease back into it. Obviously, you want to proceed with precaution because, again, I don't know the medical pieces of it. I want to say maybe something about his iron levels and different things, and they want to make sure his heart. They wanted to be sure, just because you don't know. You throw him back out there. Then he was practicing for a little while, but he had minute restrictions, and there was a lot of back and forth. We didn't understand, how can you practice, but you can't play. If you can practice 30 minutes, you can play 5 or 10. At that point, he could have helped us. But then it got to a point in the season where we're like, it's not worth it. The future for him is more important, and it wouldn't be fair to him. And so just making sure he was at a place. But I do. He's been back, doing some things, been back in Sykeston, and I think he'll be ready to roll. So that all signs point to that. So that's good. Gibson, same thing. Gibson, Gibson's not going to stay down very long. Gibson's going to be in that gym, and he's back. I talk to him every few days and talked to him earlier, and he's itching to get back, like they all are. They're all dying to get back here. But no, he'll be ready to roll. Gibson will be ready. It was one of those things, you talk about a tough moment, and the crazy part about it, we're still waiting the waiver process, but or the red shirt, whatever, submitting that. But he was right on the threshold of games allowed, and so had he played one more crazy funky deal, he went and just went for a ball and ended up in the stands in practice. Didn't think anything of it, just a foot thing. And after X-rays, it was more important for his future that he had that surgery. Could he maybe have toughed it out? He thought, but that was rough for him. To a kid that's playing well, and we knew when that happened. I remember him. We got the news the next day. We played a game, and it may have been Maryville or somewhere. It was first
I
game.
think it was Maryville.
We got the news before the game, but waited till after the game to tell him. And I came out of the coach's locker room and grabbed him. Him and I have become very close, and came up to the office, and he's obviously just distraught and trying to, again, turn a negative into a positive. I said, look, these things happen. You will have a different appreciation. And he had suffered an injury in high school that allowed him to be recruited and actually go to Montverde, and it worked out. And now looking back, like I told him, 6 months from now, Gibson, we're going to have a conversation, and you'll look back and be like, wow, hopefully you got another year, and hopefully he gets that back, and he's a freshman. He gets 4 years at this thing again. And so I said, I know it's not ideal. Nobody would choose for this to happen, but you got to try to, take your time. And so there was a process there where they went with the doctors. His family came in and different things. And it was worth him getting the surgery. There was just too many. It was something that was going to happen. They told him at some point or another, very similar, kind of like Elliot Wilmer situation. Not as bad. Obviously, Elliot hurt his a lot, but it was one of those things that it had to be done. And thank goodness that it happened under the threshold of games.
Ford also covered his hiring by Coach Ford. He also talked about, the process that he went through to be hired by Coach Ford, as there goes my phone, and the process in which he went about dealing with, the stresses and the insanity of being thrown into an assistant head coaching job at such a young age. So he went over all that and kind of talked about the insight into how he got hired at St. Louis University.
All these kind of things kind of play into the relationship that we have today. Fast forward, I played 4 years for him at Oklahoma State, and he comes and takes a job here. And at that time, I've gone back. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was very close. My two best friends who I came in with were Phil Forte and Marcus Smart. And every summer I'd spend time with Marcus, and really was around the NBA, around a lot of people. And I thought I wanted to be an agent. So fast track, I end up coming here. I was going to GA. The guy he had hired as my role, Tommy Wade, actually leaves that summer to take an assistant job at Jacksonville State. And that's when I stepped into the role. But I had to earn it a little bit. Like, I'll remember he made me wait like a month or two after I voiced that I would like to do that, just to see. I ran our camps and to see if I could do it. And I still, for a year or two, probably honestly didn't know what I wanted to do. Long story short, here I am today. That's a whole nother story. But with our relationship, without getting off track too much here, I have a tendency to do that. But it's morphed into, is he my boss? Do I have the ultimate amount of respect for him? Absolutely. But there's also a level of internally within our program, because we do share the same blood, that, again, it's a relationship that I don't take for granted by any means. Of, again, we were raised by the same people. My grandparents, I'm just as close to my grandparents as I am my parents. And so we think a lot of the same ways. We have a lot of the same tendencies. I'll find myself doing things. And again, that's all I've known for 8 years. Day in and day out, I talk to him multiple times a day about life, about all these things. He's been nothing short of a mentor and really a secondary father figure. I'm as close to him as I am my dad. My dad's from Norway, came over and played tennis. And so going back to just our relationship, it's very unique. It's one that obviously I'm proud of. And what a lot of people don't know is when I got promoted to an assistant coach, he went through the process with me the same way he went through. There was a lot of people wanting this job, obviously, and there was a lot of different things, and timing is everything in this business. And I don't take for granted, the opportunity I've been given, and I try to work and warrant that. But when that time happened, there was a long period of time where it went by. He didn't know what he was going to do. And we would talk about it, but it was kind of kept close to the chest for him. And he kind of navigated that. He actually sent me out a little recruiting during that summer. And I think ultimately he was at a point in his career and saw something in me that I had an eagerness to be successful. But again, make no mistake about it, I owe everything to the guys ahead of me, Van, Corey, Will, Coach, but then the players that win that A-10 tournament. If we don't win that, Van maybe doesn't leave for St. John's. I may still be in ops, and who knows if I'm here, who knows where, crazy. Everything's timing. And so I'm extremely fortunate for that. But I went through the process. We sat down, and it was obviously a little more casual than the interview process, but those people he voiced to me, I may hire this guy, I may hire that guy. And I'll never forget one day he told me, he said, I haven't ruled you out. And I thought at that time I had a chance. At that time I still, and I still to this day struggle, and I've spoken about this out loud about, warranting at such a young age my position. And I still, I'm going from a relationship with our guys that's kind of, an older brother to now a little bit of a mentor. And so there's a lot of things going through my head. Am I ready for this? Can I really do it? And it happened so fast. Now looking back, you just hit the ground running, you work as hard as you can.
Ford also recapped his recruiting history with Travis and how he goes about recruiting kids, and how we look at him obviously as Billikens fans, and that's the most accessible person when it comes to recruiting. That's the person that is the most transparent, I would say, when it comes to recruiting and being able to get that information out there for fans to know who the Billikens are going after. What players do they think fit best for this team? What players do they think can have an impact with this team? Where is their recruiting philosophies at, et cetera, et cetera. Ford Stuen gave us as good of a breakdown of his recruiting and of the Billikens recruiting as a whole as I think we've heard on the podcast thus far. So take a listen to that as we close out the episode.
Generally, again, going back to how he navigates that is absolutely where I've learned that from. I was blessed, obviously, to be around my grandfather at a young age a lot, and he knows more people. Him and Corey Tate are the two people that probably know more people than anybody else that I know in the world. They just – everybody – he's a talker. He's everything. So it was ingrained in me at a young age to just be a talker and just navigate relationships and communicate and stay on top of that. And there's you can't have any shortness of that in this business. And so I think that's where the natural side of, that comes from. But then you have to enjoy it because, and I talk about this with other coaches a lot of people want to get into coaching this and that. And if you don't enjoy that piece of it and you're in college basketball, and that's not to say that you're always going to love it. I mean, I've spent long nights driving from, flying from Miami to Charleston, South Carolina, driving to South Carolina, middle of nowhere to a game, driving from there to Atlanta, getting in at 4 a.m. There's a lot of that. And so to sit there and say that that's just pure fun, I'd be lying to you. But again, the eagerness and for me, it's all the little wins along the way. And I'm big on celebrating those things, whether it's winning a game, whether it's getting a recruit, whether you have a successful practice, all these things. We're in such a fleeting business that if you don't celebrate those things, you're going to look up one day and you just have to appreciate them. And so all these things play into kind of my approach, along with what I just alluded to with my relationship with him about I'm a guy that when I got the job, I came in and Will Bailey and Corey Tate are nothing short of amazing in the recruiting world and the way that they navigate. And they're two very different people in how they go about it. And I've learned from both of them. Will is bury your nose, work day in and day out, on the phone all the time, call in. So I've learned from that, which has been very valuable. Van Macon was, I got 5 names on a list, I better get one of them. Whereas Will Bailey will walk into our meetings and have a list of, and I'm a mixture of both. I don't do it quite like Will Bailey and have that many kids, just because I think you can spread yourself thin a little bit, but that's how he approaches it. Corey Tate has put the nail in the coffin in St. Louis. He knows more people. And so, again, how Corey navigates relationships within a city, I've never heard him say a bad word about anybody or somebody say a bad word about him. Best dude you'll ever meet. Everybody loves him. But these people, as well as Coach, obviously, But these people have helped me navigate a world where, again, I'm a young guy trying to make it, but I didn't come into it with this notion that, okay, I'm going to be, like what you said, a young hotshot recruiter. I know that comes with it. And to me, when I approach it, I'm just like, honestly, in my head, I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. I'm just like, this is part of the job. This is what it is. And if that notion gets, perceived, then great. Obviously I'll take it, but in no way, shape or form when I'm, going somewhere and tweeting it thinking, oh, this is going to get me this reputation, this, and this. No, I'm trying to go as many places, meet as many people, because if there's anything that I've learned in my short 28 years on this earth is there's no burned bridges. There's no bad relationships. And I tell everybody that. I've had things come out in the last year of relationships of people that I knew that I played AAU with in high school, in middle school, 7th, 8th grade, that now have attachments to players who are some of the top players in the Midwest. And so my point is, you never know when these things, and it's no different than trying to get into the business. Everybody wants to just call, when somebody's got openings or this and that. No, these things start at the ground level and they're built over time. So, I may be friends with an AAU coach in Dallas, Texas, and he may not have a player for 5 years. But the one time he does, if I've been keeping in touch and keeping a real, and I'm a person, I just like real relationships. I don't like all the fluff. And so if I'm keeping in touch and legitimately concerned, you don't think that that's going to go a lot further than, 5 years go by, all of a sudden I heard you got a player. Hey, and that's not to say you can communicate with everybody. I don't have enough time in the day. But every time that I get these opportunities, again, when I fly to Miami, meet one high school coach, from that point on for the rest of my career, I now know them. I have a connection to them. And so that's how I've approached it, of a standpoint of like, and I've seen Corey and Will navigate it, of I didn't come into this with, I'm going to be a recruiter. I was trying to be a chameleon, and still to this day, I'm the young gopher that again, I'm trying to make it. These guys are at a different stage in their career. They're different ages. We all want different things in our lives and careers. But for me, I never approached it kind of like what you're saying. I've never really stopped and thought about it. And so obviously I appreciate you saying those things. And yeah, it feels good to for your hard work to pay off and for this to happen. It goes back to the relationship that I have with Coach and the trust factor of, there may be somebody text him about a kid, and because I am his blood and we've been around each other for so long and think so along the same lines, he trusts me to get on the plane and go here or go there. No different than when I went to Europe. I was very, very hesitant on that whole trip and different things, and I would have never came back and said a kid could play if I didn't see it multiple times and then do my due diligence. And again, I'm not going to be on my first year throwing out guys that are borderline can play or anything like that. And so with Andre Lawrenson, when I saw that whole thing come out and happen and kind of maturate, it was like, oh crap, like, I was hesitant, but I was also like, no, we need to get on this before anybody else. And so that's another story.